Washington Journal continues.
More about Campaign 2020. We are joined by Tim Chapman, who is Executive Director of Heritage Action for America, here in particular to talk about your recent survey of the top issues. You're polling about what what voters are interested in 2020. But and we'll get to some of those issues in a moment. But I wanted to pick up on the last issue we talked about, and that's the guns issue. The president has gone in many different ways on this, not really defined where he stands, but is that an issue at all in 2020 that the president can find a place of some victory, something to boast about?
Well, there's no doubt there's millions of Americans who are concerned about their Second Amendment rights. And if you just look at the electoral map, I mean, you look at states that are going to be really important. You look at states like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Ohio. Those are states with a huge population of gun owners and of sporting folks who will go out and do hunting and use their guns for all sorts of recreational use. And I think there's going to be an element there where there will be concern that the left might overreach. Now, that's not to say that the president is not concerned about what's happening right now in terms of gun violence and that Republicans aren't. You see a lot of Republicans who are taking serious steps in the Senate and the House to try to seriously address this stuff. But I think what you will see is that the Democratic Party, you know, as Rahm Emanuel always said, don't let a good crisis go to waste. I think the Democratic Party will likely try to overreach on the Second Amendment issue. And I don't think that works for them in the electoral map coming into 2020 the way they might think it does.
Let's look at what the large overall view of your survey that Heritage Action did in terms of what are key issues and things that voters are concerned about that you survey. How many folks do you survey for this?
So we did 4 different surveys. The surveys ranged from 1,500 per survey up to a little closer to 2,000. The surveys, we did 2 of the surveys were nationwide surveys. One was nationwide of just Republicans. The other was nationwide of all registered voters. And then we did a battleground district survey where we looked at 15 different battleground districts, House districts going into 2020. And then we did a 5-state battleground district.
We'll look at the battleground one. This one right here, what our polling says about victory in 2020. And this is the overall number. Those you polled rejecting a single-payer plan. Obviously, the president interested in a new approach to health care. Opposing socialism, 65% agree with that question. Fixing immigration, 63% agreeing with that. On protecting life and pro-life issues, 76%. Rejecting political correctness, 73%. And in terms of automation, job automation, outsourcing, this one in particular, let's start with that. 83% agree. What was the question you asked them on that?
So we asked folks what they thought about, first, we had a constant theme that we found in these when we asked about the economic issues and the workforce issues. And the theme was a positive thought right now about wages and where wages are, but a kind of anxiety about the future. And so what we asked folks there was, we said first, like, do you think that your job will be around 10 to 15 years from now? And we were talking to people about these working class jobs. And the previous question was, what did you think about your wages? And people were satisfied with their wages and hopeful that they would continue to tick up. But then the second question was, will a lot of these jobs be here? And 83% of people thought that the jobs would be automated out of the workforce. And so I think that presents both a challenge and an opportunity for Republicans, because I think what the president did in 2016 that a lot of Republicans have been trying to do since Ronald Reagan, but not very successfully, the president brought working class Americans into the Republican coalition. And when he brought them into the coalition, he brought them into the coalition in no small part because he talked about issues that a lot of Republicans didn't talk about in the 2016 primary. And so when you talk about the hollowing out of manufacturing, some of these economic anxieties, things like that, and the trade issue, that allowed him to bring them in there. Now, if you have so many people anxious about the future, you have to present a plan, right? And I think that's the opportunity for the Republican Party, is the party has got to put policies that will work for working class Americans front and center. So the 2020 election can't just be about personalities and the president and whoever the president's running against. It needs to be about what the party and the administration will do in 2020.
So not just strong enough to run on the low unemployment rate, the increase in jobs in manufacturing and elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the electorate actually has kind of baked that in. People are grateful that wages are increasing, but that economic anxiety that still exists out there, the worry about the future, you need to have the policies up front that are going to help to alleviate that worry and that anxiety.
I wanted to go to the poll in the congressional battleground states. You said you looked at 15 states?
Yeah, 15 districts.
15 districts.
Yep.
You asked a number of questions, including this one. Thinking about the 2020 presidential election, tell me which of the following comes closest to your opinion in terms of supporting President Trump. Congressional battleground states, 32% support. Supporting Trump, likely to vote for Trump, 21%, so a total of 53% in those battleground states do not support the president and won't vote for President Trump, 42%.
42% will not.
Yeah, will not.
Yes, right. And so I think what you're seeing there, that this is a really important point for Republicans, conservatives, folks who want to have their ideas win in this next cycle. That 12%, sorry, you had 32% and then
21%.
21%. Yeah. So you've got this middle ground of people that may be able to shift over. We asked a separate question, and what it was what just straight up the president's approval rating. And the president's approval rating was 37% approve, 12% said, I like the president's policies and I may vote for him, and then 48% said they didn't approve of the president. That 12% in the middle is the key. And you've got, and we believe that the way that you win those people over is the policies. You've got to say, because they've already volunteered that they like some of the president's policies, they may be uncomfortable with certain things about the style or whatever, or the national political scene and how vitriolic it is becoming. But if you put the policies front and center, we think you can get that 12%.
Tim Chapman is our guest. He is the executive director of Heritage Action for America, talking about the conservative agenda for 2020, more in particular, their recent surveys, in particular congressional battleground and swing states. We welcome your calls and your comments, 202-748-8000 for Democrats, 202-748-8001 for Republicans, and for independents and others, that's 202-748-8002. Today's New York Times has a headline, no clear policy agenda heading into election, but it may not matter. They write the president heads into the closing months of the year before he faces re-election without a clear policy agenda, with an uphill path to achieving any new major accomplishments before he faces voters. Over the summer, dominated by his personal attacks on Democratic lawmakers, the news meter, and his trade showdown with China, Mr. Trump has spent little time clarifying his positions on several important agenda items that could bolster his record. You talked about the Republicans and the president needing an economic plan or policy. Where else do you think that presidential platform or the issues that he runs and needs to make clear will be for 2020?
So I think he's going to have an opportunity pretty soon here, because the Democratic field is going to start to winnow itself out. And the Democrats, to their credit, are doing a pretty good job of focusing on issues. If you look at Elizabeth Warren, I think one of the reasons that she has become ascendant in the Democratic primary is because she's been almost, myopically focused on issues. And now look, her issues are issues that we think are wildly too far to the left. But she is proposing ideas. Now, as the Democratic Party winnows down and they start debating these things, I think you're going to see things like the Democratic plans for higher education reform coming full front and center. That provides an opportunity for the president to provide a counterbalance to that. And I think one of the things that we picked up in our polling is that there's a huge opportunity for Republicans on issues of higher education reform and workforce training and vocational training. You see overwhelmingly in the electorate that close to 80% of the American voters think that the deal, it's not a good deal, the cost of higher education. People are graduating with massive amounts of debt. They don't have a degree that gives them a job right away. And the bargain's not there anymore. So I think there's an opportunity for Republicans to push some of these reforms. Look at a guy like Mike Lee in the Senate has got a great reform. And basically, his reform does one thing. It says you can take the money that we're spending right now on federal student loans, and if you don't feel like a four-year college education is exactly what you need to be successful and to achieve the American dream, we're going to allow you to access those funds and go do vocational training or apprenticeship training. And to me, that's a great reform, because there are so many jobs out there that people don't have the skills for, and we need to be training the next generation of the American workforce.